Welcome to the School of Wisdom. Today I want to talk to you about giving advice. The number one principle of giving advice is don't. Don't give advice because it can pollute someone's mind, and the fact that it can lead them astray and away from their goals, and then they're going to turn to you and they're going to look at you like you're the problem. Now, how can we help people? Because if that's basically the ultimate goal of giving advice, as long as it's not an issue of wanting to control someone. We can help someone by letting them dawn with their own conclusions about their reality. The thing is, we have to realize is it's their reality. It's not ours. And so what we can do is we can put out breadcrumbs of specific ideas that may help them. And again, those ideas are just the bare facts of experience. Facts of experience in the sense of truths that which have improved our lives, and we're just relaying it back to them. Or truths in the sense of facts that they have conveyed to us, and that we're helping to clarify for them. Which brings us to our next point, which is be a mirror that reflects someone's thought process to them in a way that clarifies it. How can we make greater sense of this idea? Well, if someone is speaking to us and they're telling us about certain dynamics that are at play in their lives, we can ask them questions about it in a way that helps them to see the different connections. Because the fundamental aspect here is that we're looking at their situation from the external perspective, where they're looking at it from the internal perspective. And so the thing is, a lot of times we get so deeply enmeshed in emotional situations that we're not able to abstract ourselves to see it from a greater objective viewpoint that is external to the situation. It's like, for example, let's say a fire is beginning to take a blaze in a valley, and you're in the valley and you don't know that it's spreading like wildfire and coming towards your destination. But the individual who is at the top of the mountain looking down, they can see everything that's at play. And since they have that eagle eye and that external perspective, they're able to see certain things into the situation that you're not able to see. What does this mean? This means that a lot of times all we need is that exterior perspective. That exterior perspective can see things that we may not be able to see. So, being a mirror again means reflecting the thoughts that they convey to you in a way that helps them make sense of it, but also on a more empathetic level helps you make sense of it. Because if your goal truly is to want to help someone, you have to really be able to synthesize the facts in a way that makes a coherent stream of understanding in your mind about what they're going through. A lot of times all people need is someone to be there with them to experience what they're going through. And that means tapping into the art of listening. In the next video, I'll be talking about the art of listening, which goes into greater depth about that. So, in the context of being a mirror and asking questions, we may ask a question that clarifies what they're going through. For example, how has such and such affected you? In what way has this person added value to your life? In what way has this person detracted value from or subtracted value from your life? By using these types of questions in the evaluative and descriptive sense, it helps them get different angles of understanding what they're going through. And through these questions, it helps them abstract themselves into that exterior viewpoint. But again, one of the fundamental elements here is that if someone's going through an emotionally heavy situation, first they need to diffuse that emotion before they can gain that intellectual clarity. For the simple fact that you could imagine when you're like in this rage or this storm overcomes you and you're seeing nothing but red, how are you going to come about discovering resolution that resolves the situation? Is very, very difficult. So when helping someone, let them first diffuse all that emotion by letting them get it out, not interrupting them. And then, once they have calmed down and they're more in a rational state of composure, then you can gently begin asking questions which has them look at certain areas what they may have not looked at. Now, here's an example. It's like you can imagine that they're looking in this direction, but you merely want them to see out of a different window of reality. So you're merely turning their head by asking them the question, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, have you looked over here? Because a lot of times we're so fixed in just looking in one direction that we fail to realize and to take into account all the other facts of our experiences. So this brings forth the question is, how can we actually go about helping someone if we really have a strong desire to give advice? We can give advice indirectly. That is to say, we can give advice through our own experiences. We can give advice through our own experiences by talking about certain situations and how those situations have affected our lives. I did such and such, and it ended up affecting me in this way. Or you could talk about it through the context of a friend. I had a friend who did such and such, and it affected him in this way. So, talking about it in this direct sense gives a person the ability to access their own free will of individuality. Because, again, hearkening back to my video, The Burden of Intelligence, we want to grant someone the privilege to their own beingness. We want to allow them to be themselves and to make their own decisions. But if we're giving them advice, we are forcing them to take our decisions and make it theirs. We're not giving them that freedom and that latitude to express themselves in a way that represents their core truth. So a homework assignment that I would like to give you is the fact that I want you to think of several ways that you can help someone in a way that clarifies their life by relaying a particular experience to them, but that doesn't force them over to your persuasion of thought. By doing so, you can start to condition that mindset of allowing people to make their own decisions without encumbering their thought process. Because again, it's their thought process and it's moving in a certain direction, and all we want to do is act like guideposts that help readjust the direction of where they're going. Now, I want to talk about one exception. This particular exception is the idea that sometimes there's a harsh reality that's at play in our human dynamics. And sometimes we cannot be so soft in our approach because it ends up affecting us negatively. Now, I know that I have been in the particular situations where I've tried to help someone and I've tried to clarify the facts of their experience and share my wisdom in personal terms. But the thing is, I felt like it continually exhausted me. There was no emotional reciprocity where I felt like I was equally gaining emotional energy and emotional momentum in my own life. It was just something that was exhausting my reservoir. So, what can you do when you're in this situation? The situation where somebody keeps draining your energy like an emotional vampire. Well, sometimes you got to give them the harsh truths of reality. You might need to tell them, hey, this is what's going on and such is occurring. So for example, if someone is destroying their life, let's say with drugs, and they mean a lot to you, you might have to tell them, even at the expense of overriding some of these principles, you may have to tell them you are going down a dark path, and if you do not change your direction, it can mean something very, very, very bad. So sometimes, And very rarely will you have to do this. It should not be the type of thing where you're being this harsh all the time. And if you are, you need to re-examine the dynamic of your friendships and relationships with people to see if they're really adding value to your life, because you should not have an abundance of relationships where you have to relay this harsh reality. It's only with those particular relationships where those people are not seeking the truth and working to make their lives better. But again, you don't want to give advice. Just as some of the more important key elements I just want to convey to you, you don't want to give advice. You want to allow them to have their own will. You want to allow them to dawn with their own realizations, to experience the pleasure of an epiphany or a cognition, that life-changing experience which just connects all the dots of someone's life. You want to be a mirror that reflects their knowledge back to them in a way that allows them to make better sense of their reality. You want to ask questions which stimulate thoughts in different directions. And you want to talk about your wisdom in experiential terms and how it's affected you, or maybe it's affected a friend. And that harsh reality is, if you have those few people in your life who are affecting you in a very negative way, sometimes you need to push back a little bit by slapping them around with the facts of truth. Thank you.